Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Eleanor Silverstein, and I'm here with Linda Tellington Jones on her, I believe it's our third book club meeting. And today our book club is You're the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I'd like to welcome you. And Linda, I would like to welcome you to your book club.
Eleanor, this is most exciting. So I think it would be really wonderful if we would just have each person say who they are and where they are, just that much, so we kind of get a sense of our community today.
Well, we could go in order. I see Renee Boyer. Renee, would you like to welcome?
Hi, I'm Renee, and I'm in Omaha, Nebraska.
Cold. Oh.
And how did you know? Are you a T-Touch practitioner?
No, I'm not. I'm a Reiki level 2, and I've been looking at Linda's stuff, and I would love to come to a class. I just need to arrange my finances. I'd love to come to Hawaii. I'd love that. Big Island's beautiful. But I was at Du Bois, Wyoming, not last year or so. Last year, and Tellington T-Touch was the week after Anna, who does horse Reiki. And so I listened about that and read up on it and thought Tellington T-Touch is something I would like to learn how to do along with Reiki. Okay. So that's why I'm very interested in this. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to bring on Christine Alon because she's only here for a very few minutes in between flights to fly back to Australia, I think, you're in between something. So Christine, you said you only had like 5 minutes, so I wanted to have you introduce yourself. Oh, no, you've got the whole time?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, fantastic. And Christine,
I'm in Calgary.
Oh, she isn't.
I normally live in Australia, but I'm in Calgary at the moment, and packing up my mum's flat. As you can see, lots of teddy bears behind me. But yeah, I'm here for the next couple of months.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome. I'm so glad you got to make it this time. Jewel, welcome, Jewel Duke.
Jewel Duke, as you said, I'm in North Carolina. I'm a companion animal practitioner and take care of the local trainings we have here in North Carolina. So if anybody would like to come to North Carolina, we have a good time.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because we're having our Feldenkrais annual conference in North Carolina this summer.
Oh, where will you be?
At the university.
At UNC in Chapel Hill?
I think so, yes.
All right. That's close to where we train, actually.
Oh, that's amazing. So, okay, let's go to Stephanie. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi. I'm Stephanie. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm a not Banel practitioner and a Feldenkrais practitioner.
Wow.
Working with children.
Welcome. Bless you. It's good to work with children.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Nancy Horenberg and somebody else. Hi, Nancy.
Hi from Botswana, and somebody else is my mother, Francoise. So good to be here. My dog, who is Antoine, she wants to join as well. So she's going to enjoy the show as well. Good.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
And I see Pam Wanver here.
Hi, I'm here.
Welcome, Pam. Who are you?
Oh, I'm Pam Wanver. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, a few blocks from DC. I run the trainings here for the companion animal practitioners, and what else? I do cranial sacral work, and I'm an advanced T-Touch practitioner.
How do I say?
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Oh, and I see Lisa.
are you?
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm in Florida this week,
There you go. It shows you.
visiting my sister instead of on the ranch in Oregon.
That's right. Rescuing lots of horses and animals. You're an amazing woman. Welcome.
Good to see you.
I think you're going to love this book.
Yes, I do love this book.
Turn.
Okay, Sandra, you got on. Great.
Finally.
Well, welcome. It took us a few tries, didn't it? I'm glad you're here. Lower your screen so we can see more than the top of your head. Well, wait, I see eyebrows. There you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
From Whitehall, Maryland, but I've done T-Touch in Rockville and still doing some of it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, welcome. And now I think I'm going to welcome Bonnie. Sorry, Bonnie, I had to mute you before because of the scratchy sound. So welcome. Can you hear us?
Hello there. Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm having a little technical difficulties. I don't quite know how to reverse my camera now. So that's why you see the potted plant. You may see the potted plant again, but anyways, I think I've got it figured out now. I'm in Michigan, and I took T-Touch about 20 years ago from Robin, which was great, and I've studied Reiki. So I'm looking to continue studying T-Touch with Linda in Hawaii.
Oh, very nice. Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah. Very
Okay.
exciting.
And I'm Eleanor Silverstein, and I've been studying with Linda since 1979. Yeah, 1979. I had to think about that. I was still in college, and I'm still studying with Linda. And both my boys have graduated college, so. And I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner, and I've been doing the T-Touch way before it was ever being done on people, but that's not true because when we did it with horses, we practiced on each other. So she's always been doing this. Linda, you are an amazing woman, and here you are with your book club. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. So I'm really excited to be with you all here. Roland and I are up in Volcano this weekend, and it's about 4,000 feet. I just saw actually 2 nene fly over. These are only here on this island. It's a type of a goose. Fascinating. So the reason that we're doing this book club, some of you know and some of you don't. I think 15 years, have had the blessing of awakening at 4:30 approximately every morning. And I take that time to study. And so I've had a chance to just for years, I've been reading these amazing wonderful visionaries we have with Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton and Dawson Church and so many of them that I just, I can't imagine who I would be if I didn't have these books behind me. And so Eleanor and I've got the idea of, well, maybe we could start sharing some of them. This book that we're doing this particular week, this is what, oops, I've got to get on my iPad here because I find I love books. You should see my house, they're full of books. But with my eyes, I need my iPad so that I can change the light behind it and I can also do all of this underlining. And the thing, I mean, I've been underlining books since literally high school. And in a regular book, I take a paper and fold it in and put it there with the string because there's never enough room for me to write all the stuff I want to write in the borders. So I find with the iPad, what I love about this, I can read it and I do all this underlining in different colors and I can make notes and do all this stuff. And then when I go through the second time to read it, I erase it all so I can start fresh because I want to see what I get this time. So I'd like to have a sense, just raise your hand if you've had a chance to really read this whole book. So You have. That's super. So what I'd like you to do, how many of you have actually read pieces of it? So what I thought I'd do, I think I've read it, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times at least. I keep going through it. And so I decided this time to actually just start reading the foreword, because every time I read this, I get, new thoughts about it. And as I'm reading, I'll try to like sort of hesitate. And then if somebody wants to put in some thinking about it, it would be great. So I'm just going to start off with this foreword by Dawson Church. He's one of my favorites, The Genie in Your Genes. And he's a colleague of Bruce Lipton and a friend of Joe Dispenza. These guys in Great Britain, they all have this wonderful connection together. So in the foreword, he writes, like most of his fans, I look forward to Joe Dispenza's provocative ideas with relish. Combining solid scientific evidence with stimulating insights, Joe stretches the horizons of the possible by extending the boundaries of the known. He takes science more seriously than most scientists, and in this fascinating book, he extrapolates the most recent discoveries in epigenetics, neuroplasticity, and neuroimmunology to their logical conclusion. And whenever you mention plasticity, of course, we have several Feldenkrais practitioners here. Not all of you know that I had the amazing blessing to have spent 4 years with Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais at the Humanistic Psychology Institute. And there were only 63 in our class with his first training. And plasticity is what he knew about. And when I wrote my book with Dr. Cecilia Wendler, she would not let us put in the book, because Eleanor wrote the chapter on Feldenkrais in my book. She wouldn't let us say that Moshe knew about neuroplasticity. And Eleanor, I want you to say something about this, because this is why this book is one of the reasons this book is so important.
Yeah. In many conversations, let me come back here. In many conversations that I had with Moshe, in his book, the one that I found in his bookshelf that he wrote in like 1956, it was just a book that was tucked behind, it was a manuscript tucked behind all of his books. And I happened to be taking books out reading, and I saw this manuscript, this big, it was huge, and this thick. And I'm starting to read through it, and he's talking about neuroplasticity in 1956. And I asked him, where is this book? Why is this book not published? And he says, well, nobody would have understood it, and it needs a lot of work on it right now. It's just my manuscript. And I'm reading it going, oh my God, this is amazing, this insight. And I said, why don't you publish it now? And he said, because I would get debunked in the scientific community because I'm talking about neuroplasticity. And I said, but they're knowing about it now. And that was in like 1982. A little bit, they're discussing it now. And he said, but they'll see that I wrote about it back then. And back then you don't understand. They blacklist scientists who talk about things that aren't ready to be spoken about. So I stole the manuscript in front of his eyes and backwards walked out saying, I'm taking it to a printer. I'm taking it to a printer. I'm taking it to a printer, until he finally gave up. I took it to a printer, made a copy, put the original back in, came back and gave it to a few people so that they put it out and they got the book published. And it's a difficult book to read because we kept it exactly the same. But my goodness, there is that photo of that famous actor that does he does the different commercials, and it's like, we use it where we use his photo and say, when all is said and done, I'm a neuroplastician. That's what we do, right? And how is that tying in to this book? He changed his mind. Yeah, and Moshe talked about that. Changing your mind is changing your belief. and changing your belief and holding that in you with flexibility around you too, and the ability to think and step in it and step out of it is the part that really creates your healing.
And there's another really little simple book. It's one of the few books that I carry with me, the actual book now. And it's The Secret of the Lost Modes of Prayer by Greg Braden. And he talks about this in such a really simple way. This book is not simple. He goes into Dr. Joe Dispenza goes into the science of it in such a way that some of these chapters take a lot of reading and rereading, and some of them I'm still skipping over some of the stuff. So this conclusion is an exciting one. You and every other human being are shaping your brain and body by the thoughts you think, the emotions you feel, the intentions you hold, and the transcendental states you experience. This is really important. And it's so interesting in Greg Braden's book, The Spontaneous Healing of Belief. He talks about this, that every thought, every emotion, every feeling, and every belief that we have affects not only us, but affects the whole quantum field. And the reason that this is so important is that means that every one of us is important. And it's so interesting bringing Moshe into our conversation here, because one of the things that we were not allowed to use in our Feldenkrais training was the word energy. So interesting, because there wasn't a real explanation for it in his time, or a scientific explanation. And now we know that every thought, feeling, emotion, and belief we have is energy. And that means that what we're doing here in this book, and this is what, when I woke up in the middle of the night last night thinking about this, we do, each one of us, not only affect ourselves by these thoughts we have, but the whole world. And that means really considering the work that it takes to change ourselves, as he explains in chapter 9. How many of you actually read chapter 9 about Laura's incredibly difficult journey? I decided not to read it today because holy mackerel, it's such a downer. But in the end, she was able to overcome something that 10 doctors said would never, never happen. And this idea that we can actually change ourselves and have spontaneous healing, this book is a possibility to really help us.
Linda,
yeah.
Can I say something? When you're talking about this woman, I got an email from one of the people who was going to attend today, yesterday, and she said she was but she wasn't able to make it, I think. She was so excited about this book because she actually studied from Dr. Joe Dispenza when he came and spoke in Chicago. And apparently she's had tremendous pain in her body and tremendous specific health issues and somewhat deafening, really severe hearing problems, to where on her television, she has to have the volume up to 32, something like that. When she came home after studying with him for a small period of time, all of those health issues were assuaged. And her hearing improved so much that it's almost too loud at a level 12.
That's a very good story to bring in. I'm glad that you did that. So I'll go on with Dawson Church's introduction. This is not, this concept that you are the placebo invites you to harness this knowledge to create a new body and a new life for yourself. This is not a metaphysical proposition. Joe explains every link in the chain of causality that starts with a thought and ends with a biological fact, such as an increase in the number of stem cells or immunity conferring protein molecules circulating in your bloodstream. This book starts with Joe's account of an accident that shattered 6 of the vertebrae in his spine. Suddenly, in extremis, he was confronted with the necessity of putting into practice what he believed in theory. None. The gifts the universe brings us. That our bodies possess an innate intelligence that includes miraculous healing power. The discipline he brought to the process of visualizing his spinal column rebuilding itself is a story of inspiration and determination. We're all inspired by such stories of spontaneous remission and miraculous healing. Yet what Joe shows us in this book is that we are all capable of experiencing such healing miracles. Renewal is built into the very fabric of our bodies, and the degeneration and disease are the exception, not the norm. And, you know, I think all of us on this screen have experienced these so-called seeming miracles. I mean, I saw it for years with Moshe in our classes when somebody would walk in and not be able to use a hand and they'd walk out being able to use it. And we see it every day with T-Touch. I mean, pain going that people have had for years that you can actually, just with these wonderful little 1 1/4 circles that we do, can take a pain, which happened to me in Chicago last weekend, was it? Oh my God, it was last weekend. In about 15 minutes, a pain going from an 8 to a 0 in 15 minutes of these little circular touches. And the fact is that this concept of the divine within is something that he comes to, and I believe that's what makes our work so effective.
Linda, can I say that this is so much what you have always talked about when you're teaching the T-Touch, right? That it isn't just a touch, but it's our belief in how we're taking in the world around us and our belief in what we're doing and the person within themselves and that connecting and the change within the cell, the light within the cell. And remember last year at the T-Touch for You that was in Kona, there was a woman who brought her mother, and her mother's legs were so swollen. Her mother was in her mid-90s, I think, and her legs were so swollen and so painful. And in 20 minutes, which is not much time, considering how swollen her legs were, her skin was so taut and almost black and blue of doing the T-Touch. And do you know that almost a year later, her mother's legs have held that?
And you know, the thing is, it's interesting. That was not her belief. She'd never been to a workshop before. She had no expectation. Julia brought her just because it was a nice thing to bring her mom along. And the changes that we all saw were really inspiring. And also, I mean, Pam and Jules and Lisa, all of you who know T-Touch, I'm not so sure it's just our belief, because how come then we can do these little 1 1/4 circles on an animal? They don't have that belief and they change. If Pam or Jules or any of you who know T-Touch or have any thoughts about that, I think that's as important. I think this is one aspect of how we can use our mind to change, but it is about that divine within that we're touching. That's what I believe is actually changing it.
Well, are we changing the environment by our belief? What are we changing? You know, the fact that they can't speak doesn't really mean anything. Maybe they always believe, and it takes us to believe to affect that.
Well, also, and actually, for those of you who don't know T-Touch, when we're doing T-Touch, what we're doing is holding the infinite possibility for change. And that's what I get throughout this book. It's just, wow, that quantum concept of holding that possibility for change. That's so exciting.
And Linda, I would say that I think the circles and the T-Touch
connects the belief with connects the physicality with the intention. So I think that's why when a person has the intention, it feels so much different than when a person does it without the intention. And I'm sure that the animals can feel that the same. Like when we practice on each other and you do it carefully with intention, even if the person had their eyes closed and didn't know what you were doing, you could feel the intention differently. So I think the circles connect the physical with the intent.
Whether they're on or off body, you know, because we can do it off the body and still affect them.
Yes.
So there's something going on there.
Well, and also years ago, I think it's been, I don't know, almost 18 years ago, I was doing a workshop at Dr. Piggy Fleming's in Florida. And what she said is that the concept of the 1 1/4 circles is like a homeopathic. It's intention is in the circle. So the person themselves does not even have to hold that intention, because we've seen little kids do. I mean, I had a 10-year-old with little tiny fingers do little tiny raccoon touches with the lightest touch on my shoulder that was hurting me one day. And she said, "Oh, can I just do some tea touches on you?" This is in actually Minneapolis. And I feel like I can still feel her little paw prints there, because in 5 minutes, the pain was gone. Now, of course, she had the intention of making me feel good. I see your hand. Raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm just, I have a girlfriend in the UK who has just found, I mean, she's had a horrific life. She's had trauma after trauma. She's had operations on her intestine after she was raped in an alleyway and left for dead and stabbed and horrible. She's just found out she's got cancer and they're giving her 6 months to live. And when she contacted me, I was probably the 3rd or 4th person that she had told, and she was still living that trauma. And remembering what Eleanor had said about my mom, and you too, Linda, to give her heart hugs from a distance. I started doing that with Helen, and it's amazing how she's gone from freak out to she's calming. She emailed me and said last night was the first time she actually slept 4 hours straight through.
Oh, beautiful.
So heart hugs from a distance with intention. We're contacting the great divine. That's what it is. You know, you're connecting with it. You're giving, like you said, we're giving that space.
That's what it is. And when you're doing that, when you're sending those heart hugs, Christine, are you doing it on yourself?
Oh yeah.
Yes, and that's what I've come to over the years. When I'm doing something from a distance, then I actually do tea touch on myself as though the other person could feel it. And
oh yeah, yeah.
It is different when I do that.
I'm the proxy for her body.
Yes.
You know, 'cause I don't have her physical body, so I'm the proxy.
Beautiful. So let's go on. Renewal is built into the very fabric of our bodies, and degeneration and disease are the exception, not the norm. Once we understand how our bodies renew themselves, we can start to harness these physiological processes intentionally, directing the hormones our cells synthesize, the proteins they build, the neurotransmitters they produce, and the neural pathways through which they send signals. Rather than possessing a static anatomy, our bodies are seething with change moment by moment. Our brains are on the boil, teeming with the creation and destruction of neural connections in every second. Joe teaches us that we can steer this process with intention, assuming the powerful position of driver of the vehicle rather than the passive role of passenger. The discovery that the number of connections in a neural bundle can double with repeat stimulation revolutionized biology in the 1990s. It earned its discoverer the neurophysicist Eric Kendall, a Nobel Prize. Kendall later found that if we don't use neural connections, they begin to shrink in just 3 weeks. And I think that goes along, with, I'm sure you've all heard this concept that if you want to learn a new habit, you have to do it like every day, 21 times. So it's interesting that in those 3 weeks, you're actually losing something if you're not attempting to rebuild it. We can reshape our brains via the signals we pass through our neural network. I'm going to jump around in this a little, jump forward. Joe is one of the few science writers to fully grasp the role of emotion in transformation. Negative emotion may literally be an addiction to high levels of our own stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. I'm going to repeat this because I remember I was giving a talk at the Free University of Berlin 20 years ago. And one of the psychologists who had invited me to speak we were driving in her car from the airport to the university, and a driver did something, and she just started yelling at him at the top of her lungs and swearing, and I was like, whoa, what is that about? And I said to her, does that make you feel good? And she said, well, that's what we learn, that we need to allow our emotions out. And now, of course, we know that when we allow those emotions out, first of all, that concept of yelling at someone else, of this aggression, comes from the place of fear and is a cry out for help. When I learned that from the Course in Miracles in 1981, that changed my life in that one sentence. This concept that aggression comes from a place of fear and is a cry for help. So it's not that we stuff it down, that we are going to stuff that aggression or that into our body, but that we can understand it. And that gives us an opportunity to experience another possibility, another infinite possibility.
That's interesting because Moshe always said, it's not pent up. Stop saying it's pent up, right?
Important.
So that's what you're saying. It's not stuffed down. It's just people expressing it, and that's not a healthy thing.
Well, what he just said here is that we are addicted to our high levels of stress hormones. And I think that this addiction to, this, what do they call it, road rage and emoting is like an addiction. And one of the things that we discovered thanks to Robin Bernhardt with the heart hugs is that it gives us an opportunity when we're in a state of fear or stress to change the control from the sympathetic fight, flight, fear to the parasympathetic. We change the control from the limbic system to the forebrain, so we can actually understand and think about it. That's what T-Touch does, and there's so many wonderful, wonderful ways now that we have so many different ways. Both these stress hormones and relaxation hormones like DHEA and oxytocin have set points, which explains why we feel uncomfortable in our skin when we think thoughts or countenance beliefs that drive our hormonal balance outside of that comfort zone. This idea is at the very frontier of the scientific understanding of addictions and cravings.
Wow. What a minute. Whoa. That's huge. It's just, when you think universally, cultures around the world exposed to stress from childhood, children anywhere in the world exposed to stress from childhood, that becomes the set point, right? And then that's the level of addiction. And then every time you turn on TV with bang, bang, boom, boom, and the video games, that creates, that strengthens that set point. And when you think of something so easy and so inexpensive, it doesn't cost a penny to give yourself a heart hug, to make that moment shift for you and to fill your cells with that love, to fill your cells with that love. Even if we do T-Touch anywhere on us, if anything we could teach in the world, honestly, as simple as the heart hug. And then, of course, we can go into detail with T-Touch anywhere on us. And this is what I tell people. It's cheap. It's free. Just do it for yourself.
Yes, that's the thing. And Eleanor, where can we go to see that little Zoom session that we did with the mother whose daughter was completely out of control, and she did the heart hug with her? Where can we see that?
Did I put that up onto okay, wait, tell me which story, because oh, yes. Hold on, Beth. Zoom meeting. Okay. I think I might have posted it. I have to look. Posted it onto the YouTube channel under Linda Tellington Jones. But can we tell that quick story?
I think it's yes. That's
Just very, very quickly. Woman, single mother, brilliant woman, really, really does hands-on work, brilliant woman. Adopted 2 children, that one was adopted at a much older age, so came with a lot of problems and dissociative issues, and really has temper tantrums. And she's a young adult, maybe 17, 18 years old. And her daughter was literally having a meltdown over something that the younger sister had said. And I think it was over a t-shirt or something, but literally had a meltdown. And my colleague used this heart hug that Linda had taught her, that she had learned in one of the classes, and went over to her daughter, and her daughter was lying on the ground. She went and lovingly sat on top of her to support her, to give her the love, and said, "Trust me when I'm doing this wonderful touch with you, and tell me how you feel." And she did the heart hug to her daughter, and her whole everything shifted. She knows her daughter well. Normally when her daughter gets in that mode, she would have gone for hours like that. And it was moments of straight into, oh. And it was a thank you, Mom, for giving me back myself.
Getting over that these addictions of going into activating those stress hormones is pretty amazing. So I'm going to jump over to the next page and jump here to that some of the chemicals like oxytocin that are stimulated by light touch are associated with feelings of love and trust. And that's exactly what happened in that case, Eleanor. With practice, you can learn to quickly adjust your set points for stress hormones and healing hormones. And that is one of them is with the heart hug. And for some of you on the call, on the Zoom session where we did the book Oxytocin, the hormone for healing and hope.
Yes.
Yeah. Because like, I believe that activation of that hormone, which was studied, with light touch that activated, that is the key to why we're getting all of these changes with T-Touch. The notion that you can heal yourself by simply translating thought into emotion might sound astounding at first. Not even Joe expected the results he began to observe in participants attending his workshops when they fully applied these ideas. Spontaneous remission of tumors, wheelchair-bound patients walking, and migraines disappearing. With the open-hearted delight and open-minded experimentation of a child at play, Joe began to push the envelope, wondering just how fast radical healing might occur if people applied the body's placebo effect with complete conviction. Hence the title, You Are the Placebo, reflects the fact that it's your own thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that are generating chains of physiological events in your body. And this is, to me, that's what our talk this morning is about. It's our own, he says your own, but it's our own thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that are generating chains of physiological events in your body. And the chapter 9 starts off with this long, difficult, holy mackerel, impossible situation in this woman, Laura, where she was told that if she didn't have a nail put down through the bone, that she would never walk again. And after like 9 doctors told her that, and the 10th doctor said, if she does do that, it'll just shatter above and below it. And she'll be wheelchair bound anyway. And she was completely depressed. She was in college, completely depressed, had no hope, and actually started working with Joe Dispenza and changed her life around. So that chapter, when you have time, it's worth looking at. A new generation of researchers has coined a term for the practice Joe outlines: self-directed neuroplasticity.
Woo, woo, that's amazing. Sorry, did not mean to interrupt. Whoa.
Ooh, I want. That's what we want. Emotion. Self-directed neuroplasticity. The idea behind the term is that we direct the formation of new neural pathways and the destruction of old ones through the quality of the experiences we cultivate. And of course, that is Moshe, that we direct the formation of new neural pathways through these gentle, non-habitual movements. And that's where T-touch differs from Feldenkrais, because what we're interested with the circular touches is in talking directly. It's like supporting directly the divine intelligence in the cells, in the nucleus of the cell, that divine, amazing perfection at the nucleus of our cells. So, and when we start looking at all these wonderful, different, wonderful therapies that we have with Feldenkrais and Reiki and all this wonderful new science and spirituality connection of Joe Dispenza's and T-touch, and there's so much wonderful possibilities out here for us today. The idea behind the term is that we direct the formation of new neural pathways and the destruction of old ones through the quality of the experiences we cultivate. So I'm going to go to the last sentence of this particular chapter, actually last couple of sentences. You have nothing to lose by throwing yourself enthusiastically into the process and dumping the thoughts, feelings, and biological subconscious that have limited your past. Believe in your ability to realize your highest potential and take inspired action, and you will become the placebo that creates a happy and healthy future for yourself and for our planet. So in the preface, I love to jump into into Joe Dispenza's Waking Up, his preface. I was 23 at the time that I had this wake-up call. I'm putting some of this together. With a relatively new chiropractic practice in La Jolla. Man, that was really young, wasn't it, to have a chiropractic practice? And I trained hard for the triathlon for months. So he was running in this triathlon, I'm sure you all know this, a red four-wheel drive Bronco going about 55 miles an hour. I jumped into my bike behind. The next thing I knew was catapulted into the air, and I'm jumping ahead. I would soon discover that I had broken 6 vertebrae and had compression fractures in thoracic 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and lumbar 1, ranging from my shoulder blades to my kidneys. The vertebrae are stacked like individual blocks in the spine, and when I hit the ground with that kind of force, they collapsed and compressed from the impact. The 8th thoracic vertebrae, the top segment that I broke, was more than 60% collapsed, and the circular arc that contained and protected the spinal cord was broken and pushed together in a pretzel-like shape. The reason I decided I think it's useful to read this again and see, I mean, this is like as bad as it can get,
As
right?
bad as it gets, yes.
So with all of that, as if I were in a bad dream gone rogue, I woke up the next morning with a host of neurological symptoms, including several different kinds of pain, varying degrees of numbness, tingling, and some loss of feeling in my legs, and some sobering difficulties in controlling my movements. So he had all the blood tests, and he needed surgery to implant a Harrington rod, is what he was told. I'm jumping. I knew I'd probably still be somewhat disabled if I could walk again. And I'd have to live with chronic pain for the rest of my life. Needless to say, I didn't like the option. But if I chose not to have surgery, paralysis seemed certain. The first surgeon's opinion told me that he knew of no other patient in the United States in my condition who had refused this surgery. I don't know if any of you have ever known anyone with these rods down their back. Oh dear, I have worked on them with, children with them. I can't even imagine the pain that occurs with this. So I decided against the medical model and the expert recommendations. And this is the part that just touches me in this book. I believe that there's an intelligence, an invisible consciousness within each of us that is the giver of life. It supports, maintains, protects, and heals us every moment. It creates almost 100 trillion specialized cells, starting with only 2. It keeps our hearts beating hundreds of thousands of times per day, and it can organize hundreds of thousands of chemical reactions in a single cell in every second. Among many other amazing functions, I reasoned at the time that if this intelligence was real, and if it willfully, mindfully, and lovingly demonstrated such amazing abilities, maybe I could take my attention off my external world and begin to go within and connect with it, developing a relationship with it. And that's what Tellington T-Touch is really about. It is going within and connecting and honoring and celebrating this amazing divine that is in each cell in our body. I had to apply every bit of philosophy that I knew in order to take that knowledge to the next level and beyond, to create a true experience in healing. And since I wasn't going anywhere and I wasn't doing anything except lying face down, I decided on 2 things. First, every day I would put all of my conscious attention on this intelligence within me and give it a plan, a template, a vision with very specific orders. And then I would surrender my healing to this greater mind that has unlimited power, allowing it to do the healing for me. And second, I wouldn't let any thought slip by my awareness that I didn't want to experience. Sounds easy, right? We know how that is, no? And the thing is so beautiful. This is where Eleanor is coming over here in on the 6th of February, and a group of teachers of Tellington T-Touch are weaving together to find ways of expressing for our animal practitioners how we can take Tellington T-Touch to explain it in a simplified way, but honoring that real connection of going inside. And that's what I do each day with the body blessing. I lie on my beamer and do my body blessing now, and I just have this feeling that from the top of my hair to the tip of my toenails, actually, I'm addressing that innate divine intelligence within my body. And I like to send that out around the world to all of, to all beings at this time. So, a radical decision. I stayed for the next 3 months to focus on my healing. And I was on a mission. I decided I would begin every day reconstructing my spine, my vertebrae by vertebrae, and I would show this consciousness, if it was paying attention to my efforts, what I wanted. I knew that it would demand my absolute presence. That is, for me to be present in the moment, not thinking about or regretting my past, worrying about the future, obsessing about the conditions of my external life, or focusing on my pain or symptoms. And boy, doesn't this take support? This is why I think, and one of the reasons I love this book so much, because it's the merging of science and spirituality. And that's my passion, is to understand what, this at another point from another science, merging science and spirituality. Just as in any relationship we have with anybody, we all know when someone is present or not with us, right? And this is underlined. This is one of the underlines in the book that many, many people have done. Because consciousness is awareness, awareness is paying attention, and paying attention is being present and noticing. This consciousness would be aware of when I was present and when I wasn't. I would have to be totally present when I interacted with this mind. My presence would have to match its presence, and my will would have to match its will, and my mind would have to match its mind. I realized back then that when crisis or trauma occurs, we spend too much of our attention and energy thinking about what we don't want and instead of what we do want. And those of us who do the Tellington work with our animals know this well, because it's one of our basic premises is, if you want to change your dog or horse or kitty or bunny or any other animal, change your mind and focus on what we do want. It's a basic law of the universe from the Abraham teachings. How many of you know Esther Hicks and the Abraham teachings? If you don't treat yourself, that should be a Christmas present, because there's such beautiful, beautiful teachings, and all just done in this very clear way. We spend too much of our attention and energy thinking about what we don't want instead of what we do want. During those first few weeks, I was guilty of this tendency on what seemed like a moment-to-moment basis. Finally, after 6 weeks of battling with myself and making the efforts to be present with this consciousness, I was able to make it through my inward reconstruction process without having to stop and start over from the beginning. 6 weeks. I remember the day I did it for the first time. It was like hitting a tennis ball on a sweet spot. There was something right about it, and it clicked. I clicked, and I felt complete, satisfied, and whole. For the first time, I was truly relaxed and present in mind and body. There was no mental chatter, no analyzing, no thinking, no obsessing, no trying. By the way, that was one of Moshe's no words. Do not try. No, try. What do you mean, try? Something lifted, and a kind of peace and silence prevailed. It was as if I no longer cared about all the things I should have been worried about in my past and future. And that realization solidified the journey for me, because right around that time, as I was creating this vision of what I wanted, reconstructing my vertebrae, it started to get easier every day. Most important, I started to notice some pretty significant physiological changes. It was in that moment that I began to correlate what I was doing inside of me to create this change with what was taking place outside of me in my body. The instant I made that correlation, I paid greater attention to what I was doing and did it with more conviction. And I did it again and again. As a result, I kept doing it with a level of joy and inspiration instead of such a dreadful compromised effort. And all of a sudden, what had originally taken me 2 or 3 hours to accomplish in one session, I was able to do in a shorter period. Now I had quite a bit of time on my hands, so I started to think about what it would be like to see a sunset again from the water's edge or eat lunch with my friends on a table in a restaurant. And I thought about how I would never take any of that for granted. In detail, I imagined, in detail, that is one of the keys. In detail, I imagine taking a shower and feeling the water on my face and body, or simply sitting up while using the toilet, or taking a walk on the beach in San Diego, the wind blowing on my face. These were some things that I had never fully appreciated before the accident, but now they had meaning. And I took my time to emotionally embrace them until I felt as if I were already there. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but now I do. I was actually starting to think about all these future potentials that existed in the quantum field. I was actually starting to think about all these future potentials that extended in the quantum field. And then I was emotionally embracing each of them. And as I selected that intentional future and married it with the elevated emotion of what it would be like to be there in that future, in the present moment, my body began to believe it was actually in that future experience. As my ability to observe my desired destiny got sharper and sharper, my cells began to reorganize themselves. I began to signal new genes in new ways, and then my body really started getting better faster. What I was learning is one of the main principles of quantum physics, that mind and matter are not separate elements. Mind and matter are not separate elements, that our conscious and unconscious thoughts and feelings are the very blueprints that control our destiny. And this is where Bruce Lipton writes about this, and I love his books, whatever.
Effect.
No, what is it? The Honeymoon Effect.
Honeymoon effect.
That our conscious and unconscious thoughts and feelings are the very blueprints that control our destiny. The persistent conviction and focus to manifest any potential future. The persistence, conviction, and focus to manifest any potential future lies within the human mind and within the mind of the infinite potentials in the quantum field. Both of these minds must work together in order to bring about any future reality that potentially already exists. I realized in that way that we are all divine creators, independent of race, gender, culture, social status, education, religious beliefs, or even past mistakes. I felt really blessed for the first time in my life. And I would like to end with this feeling of being blessed in our lives. And if we do this each day, one of the things that Roland and I really work to remember each night before we go to sleep is to share 3 blessings in our life. And this concept of counting the blessings, and this concept in this beautiful book, that we actually can set our intentions from the positive and then really pick something, like we see what it is, we feel what it is that our intention is. And this is such a great thought to take into this new year, into this coming year. Because for me, I just have this feeling that this is going to be one of the most amazing and wonderful years of my life. And to be able to say that at 78 years on this planet is a blessing in itself. And so I want to thank all of you for spending this time with me. You can't imagine being way out here, we're 2,500 miles out in the ocean, that I feel like you're all here in this living room. I wish I could serve you all this cup of, actually I'm drinking coffee with oat milk. And I wish you a really blessed Christmas time, and may the spirit of this season stay with you throughout the whole year. And I want to honor and thank Eleanor for doing this, because I so love it. And all of you being with us. I would love it if any of you could just put, where could we post this, Eleanor, your thoughts about this? We talked about starting a Facebook site that we could put our thoughts on from our discussions, and just a few thoughts to share, because it's the sharing and taking this, around the planet, back to Australia, to North Carolina, down the street from Washington, D.C., Pam, with all of you.
Well, why don't we actually keep it simple and keep it on the T-Touch Facebook page, and have it as a little sub part on the side or on your website. Oh, Christine, you have an idea?
I'm suggesting starting a secret group for the book club, and people who are in the book club join that secret group. Nobody else sees it. You have to be invited to actually join it.
Closed group or closed page.
Who can do
A
it?
secret group.
Well, do you want to have it as a closed group, or do you want to keep it so that it entices other people to get to learn about it and join also? So it's got both sides to it. And, I think it's a beautiful conversation and richness, because that whole thing is about, getting people to think about it. I personally think it would be, I get the closed part, but I kind of want more people to get this. Yeah.
If you want more people, then yes, the T-Touch group. If you want fewer people, if you want to keep it as a closed group or a secret group, it just means nobody else sees the conversation.
But we really don't want it secret, do we? We want to share it.
Yeah, we want to share more blessings around the world.
And on the T-Touch group, I don't think I belong to that T-Touch group. I belong to the Australian one.
Then you know what? What if whoever runs your website, Linda, if they put it an extra column on there, and so anyone that goes to your website will see it there. And because then everybody, and then we can talk there, and if it's set up such that we're informed when somebody is having conversation, we get to go to it. And that's possible. That's just like a little widget thing that they put.
Notifications, yeah.
Yeah.
How many people are in the T-Touch group?
I'm not.
Well, it's not just for T-Touch. It's for everybody and anybody. It just, it started this way. But we want to finish this for right now, because it's 11:03, and so we're going to end this recording, and if we want to discuss it, then that would be fine. So, it's so wonderful that we conclude each book club meeting with a heart hug.
And just, is there anybody who does not know the heart hug here? Raise your hand. Oh, so we all know it. So let's do a heart hug, and just with each 1 1/4 circle, let's give thanks. First of all, to our bodies for being here. Physical, thank you, every cell in my body. And then send these heart hugs out around the world to all my friends and family, and to all of the people who don't have anyone to care for them. Let us send divine thanks for being on this present planet.
Blessings. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We can just discuss a minute how to do this, Eleanor. I'd like to